Good evening, and thank you for watching tonight. My name is Michelle Kauk, and I will be the moderator for this evening's Legislative District 24 debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor for this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections hosts debates so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. Candidates that have a contested general election have been invited to participate in the debate. Candidates that have opted into the Clean Elections Clean Funding Program are required to participate, while traditional candidates are invited and encouraged to attend. Please note, candidates from both the House and the Senate may be participating in the debate tonight. And as the moderator, I will ensure candidates have the opportunity to engage directly with their respective opponents. The questions that will be asked this evening are coming directly from the voters. Leading up to the debates, Clean Elections conducted outreach to voters across the state, soliciting questions for the candidates. Voters who are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email, debates@kc-a.com, by text at 928-362-1062, or by phone at 480-937-1297. We ask that you specify who your question is for if it's not directed for all the candidates. We do screen questions for clarity to eliminate duplication, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate tonight is scheduled for half an hour, so we may not get to all the questions, but we will do our best. The candidates will have 1 minute for their opening and closing statements and 1 to 2 minutes to respond to voter questions. An open exchange of dialogue is encouraged. I may limit the response time for management purposes and remind the candidates of the audience and that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. The candidates who are running for Legislative District 24 for the state Senate are Senator Lela, Alston, a Democrat, and Ray Michaels, the Republican. Candidates running for the state house include Democratic candidates Representatives Jennifer Longdon and Amish, Shah. And the Republican candidates are David Alger and Robyn Cushman. Joining us tonight is Ray Michaels, the Republican candidate for state Senate. Mr. Michaels, you may begin with your opening statement.
Hello, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me this evening. And I understand that I'm all by myself. So it's nice to be here. I do also want to thank Arizona Capitol Times and Citizens Clean Election Commission for having this forum that we can talk. Well, like I said, my name is Ray Michaels. I'm actually a native Phoenician here. I went through the Scottsdale Public School system, and I've traveled internationally for the last 35 years or so. And I'm back in the Valley. I wanted to spend more time with my mom. And you know, I feel that this is a call to action on my part. I have always been interested in the political realm and governmental system of the United States. I'm a big fan of the Constitution, both the U.S. and the state Constitution. And I feel that it's important that we have a voice and that people are getting involved. I'm a local businessman here. I believe I've done well, and I wanted to truly serve as a statesman and not a lifetime politician. I'd like to come into office. I'd like to serve my constituents in LD24, and then I'd like to go back to my business and just enjoy life here in our representative republic. My foundational pillars are a limited government, states' rights, personal accountability and responsibility, balanced budgets, quality healthcare, self-sustainability. And I truly hold dear the foundation of life, liberty, and for each Arizona to pursue happiness as well. And I'd be honored to be your senator here in LD24. I think it's time for a change. We have a lot of things going on that are very, very important to all of the voters here in Arizona. And I've come forward to do my very best and to truly be a statesman.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your opening statement. At this time now, we get to get into the Q&A part of the segment tonight. And again, the questions have come from voters, so we'll start with the first question. How do you plan to deal with the heat island we have here in Phoenix?
The heat island. Could you be more specific?
Sure. So heat islands often refer to when there's a lot of commercial development or even residential development with a lot of pavement, and it creates little hot zones based on that development. And it's become a concern based on hot pockets of changes in temperature over the years.
All right, I understand. Thank you so much for letting me know what you meant on that. So with regard to Arizona, I'm a native here, born and raised. I remember how everything was so spread apart, and if you wanted to go to Mesa for the day, you basically had to pack a lunch. And now, yes, you're right. We have a lot of pavement out there. I truly admire the people who years ago planned to give us lots of open space. I enjoy those open space. I live very close to Papago Park. And this is something that we need to balance. I understand that a lot of people want to move to Arizona. We have a very beautiful state here, a very diverse state. And especially in dealing with LD24, I know there's a lot of gentrification going on right now. And as legislators, we really need to well balance the amount of tax revenue that they're anticipating by doing this type of construction and maximizing the amount of people that can be in certain spaces. And we also have to make sure that we have a lot of open spaces, a lot of park areas for our kids as well. So as the legislature, we really need to sit down, work together across the aisle, because this both benefits and is a responsibility of both Democrats and Republicans, that we can come together with a master plan. I'd like to see more of an overview of what we look for in the next 10, 20, even 30 years, as opposed to just going forward and building these massive developments one at a time without any foresight for the future. So to protect the constituents, especially in LD24, we have to really make an effort to sit down, come across the aisles, and get a master plan for what we see Phoenix to be in the next 50 years.
Great, thank you. The next question that has come in is regarding short-term rentals. Excuse me, according to the person who sent it in, short-term rentals have become a huge problem in LD24, from trash, noise, and nuisance from people who are visiting and don't know or respect the neighborhood. Police and zoning enforcement say that they can't do anything because of former legislation with Senate Bill 1350. What will you do to bring back single-family zoning and get short-term rentals under control?
You know, like I said, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Tempe, we have such a beautiful place here. We have optimum weather. We have the ability to be in places, a major hub for an airport. So of course, people are going to want to come in. And I understand the concerns that the constituents have in LD24. Now, I've been in hospitality my entire adult career, and I know what it's like for people to come on vacation and want to get away and enjoy, especially during the middle of winter. They want to come out here and enjoy. We have lots of golf courses. I think that there can be a very good balance between single family homeowners and people who want to enjoy on a short time basis to come and enjoy what we have to offer here in the Metro Phoenix area. A lot of the concerns that I've heard from people in LD24 is that it all has to do with people coming in and not taking responsibility or accountability for their actions. They feel that they can come into a home, and because they paid for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, whatever it is, that they can come in and just basically do whatever, leave a mess, and then go back to their home. And I think it starts with accountability and responsibility, not only for the people that are coming here, but to put certain restrictions on, not restrictions in the way of restricting liberty. I think that people who have properties, that they should be able to do whatever they like with them, because I do believe in a free market system and the freedom for everybody to have here in the United States, and especially in the state of Arizona. But to have guidelines, and you need to really take heart to this. I know a lot of people who have rentals, and what they do is they just put restrictions on it. They say, look, if you are coming into my home, here's the rules and regulations, and you must follow them, and you will be accountable and responsible for them. So I think what's happened in the past is that people have just let people do whatever they want, and that's really not the case. I think that we can work together again to come up with some solutions that would still allow our constituents to use the property as they see fit, but also have certain guidelines that everybody must come in. And it's a way to do unto others as you would like them. I couldn't imagine going to a big resort or a small resort and basically trashing the place and then just leaving it for somebody else to clean up. It all comes down to respect. And that comes from a level that we can't actually legislate respect, but I think that we can encourage people to know that these are possessions that people have worked very, very hard to come to a place where they can have a rental like that. And I think it's a mutual respect for your fellow man that it really comes down to. I would never leave your house in a mess, and I would hope that you would never leave my house in a mess. And I think that that would alleviate a lot of the issues that we're facing now.
Okay. Well, the next question completely switches gears and it's tying into education. Do you support STEM education and why is that important for our economy?
Well, education, I stand on three pillars: public safety, education, and the economy. Education is very, very important, and it is the future of where we're going in our state as well as the United States. Uh, in terms of education, I think that a free market system in an educational style would be very, very beneficial. What I've seen in lots of places, I lived in Hawaii for a short period of time, but I see that with education, we seem that there's a one size fits all for education, and that we come up with one idea and we want to throw the most amount of money on it, whether it's working or not. And I think that competition is probably the best thing that we can do. We should incentivize each one of the classrooms, each one of the schools, each one of the districts to come up with better solutions, because the teachers know what they're doing and they have ideas that maybe through bureaucracy, they're not getting the funding that they need. I think if we stick with one particular item and we just keep pounding it into the ground and throwing money at it, and we're not seeing results, that may not be the best option for us. I think that we should take the ingenuity and the innovativeness of citizens around and teachers and go to them and ask them, what do you think we can do better? How can we better educate, better look after our kids? What do you think? Because you know what? I don't have all the answers. I don't think any legislator has all the answers. I know that the person that I'm running uh, against in LD24, that she's been in the legislature since I was in high school for 44 years. I know that she is a teacher and is part of the Phoenix Union District. I believe she sits on the board. And if we're today in the same position or in a worse position than we were 44 years ago, maybe it's time to get some new and innovative ideas from the people that are there every day. We need to ask the teachers, the administrators, what do you need? How can we assist you as legislators to make it better for you?
Well, speaking of education and length of time, it's been 40 plus years since education formulas have been retooled here in Arizona. Now that the Invest in Ed initiative is back on the ballot, does this get the legislature off the hook for reforming education spending in Arizona?
It's funny that you said off the hook. As legislators, it's our responsibility. I mean, we are voted in from our constituents to sit down and to work out these issues so that we keep the taxes low, we keep our districts happy, and we best educate the children. I don't think that, again, there's a one size fits all that we can just throw money at and still allocate more and more funds. I know that oftentimes, people could say with a big chest out, we spend the most amount on our kids. But when it comes to the actual child and how much ends up in the classroom, there's a lot of bureaucracy that I think we can sit down both sides of the aisle and come to better ideas. If for 40 years we haven't really made this a priority, I think that's a big mistake. I was traveling internationally, like you said, for the last 35 years, and I see how the other parts of the world live, and I see how hard kids want to learn. They want to learn. And I think that there's a lot of minutia that comes in there that's not benefiting the children. If we're looking at social experimentation in the classroom, that's really not educating our children to the best of their ability. And they want to learn and they need the resources. And it's up to us not to put the blame on the teachers or the administrators, but we need to come up with some viable solutions. That's why I say, let's go to the teachers and ask for their input. Let's sit down, let's go to each one of the school systems and say, what do you need from us? How can we best assist you in the most effective and cost-effective ways?
Great. And just a reminder to people watching from home, if you're watching this live, you can submit a question at any time by email, debates@kc-a.com, by text, 928-362-1062, or by phone, 480-937-1297. We'll stick on education for just a minute here. And one of the questions that comes up at the legislature quite often is the debate or argument between charter schools and public schools. Some argue that charter schools need more accountability, while others argue that unnecessary regulations burden school choice. Do you favor more or less accountability and regulation for Arizona's charter schools?
You know, again, I think the best for education, not only here in Arizona, but around the country, is competition. You know, everybody every day comes up with some great ideas on how we can best educate our children. And this is one of the most fundamental responsibilities that we have as parents and as teachers and as citizens of the great state of Arizona, is to educate our children. We need to make sure that they understand uh, how our governmental system works, because we self-govern. This experiment that happened well over 200 years ago was innovative throughout the world. As I travel around the world and I see how other education systems are, they're basically indoctrinated. But here we have free thought, we have free speech, we have the ability to do so many things. I think competition between charter schools, parochial schools, and public schools, and even homeschools, I think we can come up with some really good ideas that can suit and build up all of them all simultaneously. I understand that parents want to raise their children as they see fit. I understand that we have a public system in place, but I also understand that with competition, you're going to find the best of the best. And that's what we should be striving for, not bringing people along the way, not going to the lowest denominator and just saying, well, you know, the kids, we just don't have smart kids anymore. I don't believe that. I believe that we have the most well-educated kids in the world, and that it's our duty and responsibility to work with competition and to find that healthy balance on both sides of the aisle, that we can come together and I think we can meet the needs for all of the schools, public as well as charter and homeschool and parochial schools.
Well, you brought up competition quite a few times. So speaking of that, let's switch the economy. Here in Arizona, what else do you think the state can be doing to attract more jobs, new industries, even talent, other than or in addition to the tax incentives?
Well, you know, we have the best of many, many worlds here. We have the wonderful weather. We have when I grew up, if you wanted to get from point A to point B, you had to take surface streets. So now we have freeway system that can get us from the East Valley all the way to the West Valley fairly quickly. We're growing very rapidly. A lot of people are coming in here. I think that the coronavirus has been highly detrimental to bringing uh, new tax uh, taxpayers to come in to the valley. I know that we have, I think we're one of the fastest growing cities, or at least one of the top 5 fastest growing cities in the country. And to bring people in, I think they're coming in as it sits right now. I think the number one thing right now is to safely get everybody back to work. I think that we have in store for us a super V coming up. I had an opportunity to speak to people uh, uh, who know right from the governor's office that we are actually, in spite of the coronavirus, that we're actually doing fairly well fiscally from a year-to-year position. So I know that people are coming in now, and I know that they want to come in, and we need to get people back to work, back to opening up, safely opening up their businesses. And I think that the incentive is that people want to come to work. They want to get back to work.
Well, you mentioned the fiscal order of the house, as they say, being our state budget. And one of the things that has been helpful for Arizona to be able to deliver services, especially as businesses and individuals are facing hardship right now from COVID, earlier this year, when the session kicked off, we had $1 billion in our rainy day fund.
Mhm.
And several of the state legislators had expressed interest in using that money to issue additional tax cuts. Where would you have been on that?
Well, that's an interesting question because I wasn't there firsthand. I wasn't privy to all of the conversations that they were going to. Rainy day funds are just for that. Fiscal responsibility is one of the most important things. We should not just say, hey, I got a lot of money in the bank, let's spend it. No, we have to, there's no way that anybody could have predicted what happened to our economy, not only here in Arizona, but throughout the United States. Nobody could have predicted that for 6 months, people have been out of work and some even longer. So it's good to have the rainy day fund. But again, we must have fiscal responsibility and not just say, hey, we have money, let's spend it, because that's not our duty as legislators. Our duty is to make sure that we keep the liberty and the freedoms for every single citizen and that they have the opportunities that they can enjoy, every single one of our citizens. And if we have a surplus, that's exactly what it is. And I'm sure that everybody will agree, we're all saving. There's going to be a time where we're not going to be able to work. We're going to go into retirement. And during that time, you want to have money that's sitting in the bank because you don't know what's going to be happening. So it's good to have this rainy day fund. But we must be fiscally responsible and not just assume that this is money that we can spend. It's not our duty to spend the taxpayers' money. It's our duty to protect public safety. It's our duty to make sure that our children are educated and that the economy can be robust in a free and in a free way that promotes liberty and the freedoms of individuals as opposed to just the group.
Going back a question, when you had talked about competition, and one of our assets here in the state of Arizona is definitely our infrastructure. It is having the freeways and roads and access ways that we do have that has been a result of decades of planning, the passing of Prop 400 here in Maricopa County, and other forward planning that has led to the system that we have today. But we still face many challenges to our infrastructure funding and shortfalls. And part of the conversations over the last several sessions have been tied to whether we look at increasing either the fuel tax or leveling the tax so those who have an electric vehicle or alternative fuel vehicle pay the same vehicle license tax as other drivers on the road. Do you support either of those proposals to help maintain and preserve the construction of streets and freeways?
Well, it's important to have to have uh, a marketplace such as Arizona, and to have the freedom of movement is very, very important. My family has been in the Valley for since the 1940s, and back in the 1950s, they had proposals to spend a lot of money on freeways and roads, and everybody came in an uproar and said, you know what, we don't want this like Los Angeles. Well, turns out that Maricopa County is actually larger than Los Angeles County, and we ended up being growing faster than they did, and we didn't have the infrastructure. So I really appreciate that they took the time many, many years ago. I'm going back 40 years ago, where they said, no, we really need to make an effort to make this happen. And we do need to keep those up. We need to keep the streets up and the freeways up, and to make sure that all of those things, so we can have a free flow of transportation here. Each one of the things that you bring up to me are specific, and there's a select group of people that know all of the details. Unfortunately, I'm not in that inner circle yet, but I can assure that people who are in LD24, that I will do my very best to take and utilize their taxpayer money as I would utilize my own. I'm very fiscally responsible. I don't feel like we need to spend money that is not necessary. And I think if it's a matter of, we need an overall picture, we need a bigger game plan, because if you say, right now we're going to build it 3 lanes, and in 5 years we're going to add another lane, and then 5 years later we're going to have another lane, the cost to do that is just so outrageous. So I'd like to take a look at this on a global level, on a much larger level, and to have a 10 and 20 and 30-year plan for growth and for transportation. I think it's very, very important. And I think we're missing the ball on this, because everybody's looking short term, and they're looking, hey, look, as long as I can get elected, that's all that I'm worried about. And that's why I said, I'm not looking for a lifetime appointment. I'm not looking to be in the legislature for 40 years. Again, I've been very blessed, and I want to go in and I want to truly serve my constituents. And the best way that I can serve them is to be fiscally responsible.
Well, we've managed, in the 25 minutes we've been communicating, we've managed to barely scratch the surface on COVID and the pandemic response. So we've got a few minutes here left, and we've got a couple more questions, but I have to ask, in terms of COVID response, how would you rate the state's response to COVID?
I think that the state has responded with the information that they've received. Just last Saturday, they brought out a report from the CDC that said that, well, you know what, maybe we've given too much death rate to the COVID. Out of the 170 plus thousand people that have died, only about 6,000 have died specifically of COVID and not additional comorbidities. And so when you have limited information or incorrect information, or information that you receive from what you would believe to be a trusted source, and you're making decisions based on that, it's very, very difficult. My view of the whole COVID situation is I'm a little disappointed, not only from a state level but from a national level, because they should have just been upfront and honest with us. They should have said, look, here is the criteria for listing COVID deaths. There's been great incentive to list on a death certificate that somebody has died of COVID. So if by chance they had severe heart disease, they had 3 weeks to live, and oh, by the way, they have COVID, they were listed as a COVID death. I don't think that that's fair for the citizens of Arizona, and I wish that this has not been politicized. That we're talking about public health here. We're not talking about whether it's a Democrat or Republican issue. And we can only make decisions as legislators based on the facts that we receive. And if we put a lot of trust into the National Institute of Health and the CDC, and they're giving us misinformation, I mean, just think, from the very beginning, they said, oh, no, it's, the president says, we're closing off flights to China. Oh, he's a bad guy. Go out. Everybody have fun. Use the public transport. Go out to dinner. And then within weeks, oh, no, you don't need to wear a mask. It's not really beneficial. And they've changed their story so many times. So I'm very disappointed that from a national and state level, we haven't been receiving the information. And I think that different decisions would have been made if we would have had the correct information from the beginning.
So based on your response there, and I want to give you the chance to be clear on this, your belief is that if someone had an underlying issue and then contracted COVID and died from that they didn't die from COVID then?
Well, it's been reported, and it's been sent out on a Saturday, which I thought was a strange day to put out something like this from the CDC, that in fact only about 6% of the deaths were for somebody who was healthy and they actually died of COVID and no other related illnesses. The other 160,000 have died of something in addition to COVID. So listen, all deaths are tragic. It's a terrible thing. This illness, I don't say that it's any less than what it is. I mean, it's tragic. But people that are dying all the time. Heart disease takes close to 600,000 people every year. So there's a lot of death that happens, But if something is skewed, and I think there was just a report just in the last day or so that Yavapai County and Coconino County were reporting COVID deaths different than Maricopa County was. And I think we even had a representative from Maricopa County that said, yes, possibility, we did skew some numbers. And so I don't like to hear that. We live in a free society, and I believe that we should get the truth from our elected representatives and from the organizations, the government agencies that we're supposed to rely on. When you talk about the CDC saying, don't wear masks, okay, now you need to wear masks. Okay, don't go to school. Okay, no, it's okay to go to school. They're giving us conflicting opinions, and it's just not beneficial to the average person. The average person says, look, I have a job, I want to go into work, I don't understand what's going on. And if they're watching mainstream media, they may not be getting the correct information. And then they're basing this, and especially on social media too. You know, with the freedom of speech, we should be able to, as Americans, as Arizonans, we should be able to hear both sides and make our own decision. That's what freedom's about.
Okay, well, we have just a few minutes left, and there's just
Okay.
2 questions left before we wrap up, so I want to get to these real quick.
Of course.
This one, another budget question, so when I say real quick, that won't be easy, but why is it important to stand up against government overspending, and what budget priorities are most important to the people that you have been engaging with on the campaign trail?
Okay. So again, I'll start with the second question first. Public safety. You know, we want to defend and not defund the police here in the state of Arizona. Everybody that I talk to wants to make sure that they can walk around their neighborhoods and they can feel safe, that they can go downtown and have a nice meal in a restaurant and feel safe. So that is a number one priority for me and a lot of my constituents. Every single person that I've talked to said public safety has to be number one. Without public safety, we can't have anything else. Why is it important to make sure that we keep the budget within a reasonable amount? Well, again, as legislators, it's not our responsibility to spend the taxpayers' money. Our responsibility is to make it easier for them to live a free life and to live out their American dream. We want to make sure that we are as fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' money as we would with our money. There's no way that I could spend more money every year and just expect that I'm not going to go bankrupt. And we have to have that same attitude, that same business sense when we're dealing directly with the state legislature. I will be fiscally responsible with the taxpayer money, and I will try to keep the taxes low because as we have lower taxes, we're going to bring in more revenue and everybody wins.
All right, and last question, I'll give you a minute on this one. In Legislative District 24, the elected officials that have been in that district have been there for a couple of sessions. How would you, as a new member, ensure that Legislative District 24 residents have a voice in the legislature?
Well, that's an excellent question. I'm so glad that you asked that. You know, I'm very much a people person. Every day I'm out early in the morning and I'm talking to the constituents. You see, I want to be the voice for Arizona. I want them to come to me. I don't have all of the answers. I don't have all the ideas, but so many people in District 24, as well as around the state of Arizona, they have some fantastic ideas, and I've heard many of them that I'd like to implement when elected for state senator in LD24. When I'm out and speaking to people, I ask them, I say, do you know who your legislators are for LD24? They said, no, I've never met them, never met them. Ray, you're the first person that I've ever talked to or showed any interest in even hearing my opinion. And I think that's the most important. As legislators, it's our duty. It's our duty to represent our populace. Again, I don't have all the ideas, but I do have 2 ears and I'm ready to listen to every single one of our constituents in LD24. I want to hear their point of view. I want to hear what affects them on a day-to-day basis. You know, so many times legislators get into office and there's a complete disconnect. They're making rules and regulations and laws that gravely affect their constituents without any regard for their constituents. And under my watch, that's not going to happen. I will freely speak to anybody. I will go to any meetings, any organizations that would like to have me. I would love to hear directly from them. And I truly want to be the voice for Arizona here in LD24.
Well, thank you. And now is when you get to give your closing remarks.
Well, to everyone in LD24, it's been my pleasure to meet so many of you as I'm out on the campaign trail, and I appreciate so much all of the input that you've had an opportunity to give me. You know, I take to heart everything that you're saying to me, good and bad, which you're happy with and which you're not so happy with. And it gives me great joy to be able to not only meet you, but to share your experiences. And I've shared many of these with some legislators that I've had the opportunity to meet. And you can rely on knowing that if you share something with me, I will take it and I will try to implement it and I will try to think it out and share it with my constituents. I want everybody to know that I've been in an environment where I've worked in places where 40 countries are represented, and I've had an opportunity to share with them and learn their different experiences. And we were like one big United Nations on the cruise ships that I worked with. I've had to work with people from all over the spectrum, from places that you probably have never even heard from or heard of. And we've gotten along so well. So I appreciate you, whether you believe in exactly what I believe, which is I'm a Christian, I'm a constitutional conservative, I love our country. I love the flag. I love everything that it's been able to give me and so many people around me. Most of my friends come from different countries around the world, and they just envy us. They know that we have the best of the best here. So I appreciate all of you. I look forward to meeting with you on the campaign trail, and I do ask for your support. Coming up, again, it's Ray Michaels. I'm your state Senate candidate for LD24. I do want to work for you. You can reach me at raymichaels4az.com. I'd love to hear from you, chat with you, and just thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And I will do my very best to serve you and truly be a statesman for LD24.
Thank you. This concludes our debate. To the candidate, Ray Michaels, we thank you so much for participating. And to the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourselves before the November 3rd election. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is your source for nonpartisan voter information. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for all of your voting needs. Thank you and have a good night.